Welcome to the MADLOVE Your Life Show. I'm Mary D., the Joy Catalyst, here to be your host and transformation guide. Mad Love is about the mad, making a difference, and love is what we serve up to live a delicious life. My intention is to help you spark new ideas, break limiting beliefs, and align with your deepest dreams and desires. Get ready for laughter, inspiration, and finding your inner roar in every show. Hey everyone, I hope that you are somewhere warm and beautiful today. It is great to be back in the studio for another live Mad Love Your Life Show episode. And I just want to remind you that at any point during the live show, you can call in your questions. Just dial 1-866-451-1451. Again, that's 866-451-1451. Or if you're streaming live from the YouTube channel, you can drop your questions for me down in the chat, and the studio engineers will pass your questions over to me for some answers. And I love your questions, so don't be shy. On today's show and all month long, the theme we're celebrating here on the show are fresh starts. And I love to create a movement around what I want to celebrate each month. And this one I chose as fresh starts. It is springtime. When I think about fresh starts, I call them new chapters, new beginnings, new transformations, new transitions. They are a rebirth. It's, like I said, springtime. And when new flowers bud, any seeds that slept through the winter, they wake up and they start to germinate and grow and bloom. The bears are waking up from their winter slumber, ready to explore the world again. And for some of you that may live in bear country, I'm guessing that they may be exploring your trash can. Most of you are aware that caterpillars are only caterpillars for a season. Then they enter the chrysalis stage, and eventually they emerge as a beautiful butterfly. And I believe that God put the butterfly here to serve as an example for us, that this is life, that we're a caterpillar for a season. But once we enter the chrysalis, we can emerge as something more beautiful and more capable than we ever thought possible. What I also love about new and fresh starts is that they can give us a new lease on life. However, there's also the fresh starts that are forced on us or born out of adversity. And since those tend to be the kind that shake us up a little more, sometimes they're the fresh start we weren't expecting. And I thought that that's what we would talk about today. We're going to talk about fresh starts, the ones that we choose, and then the ones that just show up for us because that's life. So as far back as I can remember, my first fresh start was coming into this world. And unfortunately, I don't remember that very well. I don't have an inkling of what happened before, but I'm going to guess that it was nothing like the newest experience of being the human me. I was actually born abroad and brought over to the U.S. as a toddler, so I do remember that. But my very, very most memorable first experience, the one that would have brought a transition into my life that was unexpected, is going to be the one when my parents divorced. And I was around the age of 5. So I went from having a life surrounded by my grandparents, my brother, my mom, and my dad, to being an only child to a single parent who barely spoke any English, and went from being a housewife to being full-time employed with 2 jobs, just trying to do her best to navigate what it's like to be an American and raise her American child and figure her way out in this great big place called America when she grew up in a tiny little village farm in the northern Thailand. And as I think back on this experience at such a young age, I actually give it a nod of gratitude and appreciation, because at that super young age, I was actually instilled with a level of resilience. And I was resilient not because I raised my hand and said, pick me, but rather life was choosing this for me and put it in my path. And as I look back on life, I can connect all the dots to when life shook me up and spit me in the other direction, or decided to throw me a curveball. And there's so many moments I could share with you. And and stories to share for sure. But for a moment, what I actually want to focus on is what has or is happening in your life that's not going quite as planned. And can you look back and connect the dots and see some of the ways that things in the past have shown up for you? That maybe you've been in a caterpillar stage and you got thrown into the chrysalis and you're like, am I a butterfly? Is this happening? Or do you still feel like you might still be in the chrysalis, or that you haven't even gotten into the chrysalis yet? You're not even sure what's going to happen when you hop inside. Maybe you've lost your job, or maybe you started a new job only to realize that you absolutely hate it. Maybe you were thrown a medical diagnosis, or someone you care for is undergoing a medical diagnosis that isn't looking so great. And one of the more common ones out there, maybe you and your plus one are now a minus one and you find yourself single again. When I was in my last long-term relationship, it really was an interesting process to go through, because there's this version of an identity that we create. And I was a couple and a wife. And then there's this new version that happens where it's like, oh, I'm a single person again. And I had been married for so long that I didn't really know completely how to navigate all of that. And there are so many unknowns that happen on that journey. When I look at the whole scene of it all, I can see how there are definitely some things that I did right in this process. Like, I had a good foundation, and I'm going to talk a little more about that. But because I had a foundation of community and I had other parts of my life that I still engaged in, it made the new entrance, a lot less bumpy, versus if I had come from a household where my focus, let's say, was on my partner only, and I forgot about the rest of the world. That's a little bumpier of an entry when you're coming out of something like that, and it can shake you a little bit differently. And also from my ex's point of view about how he lost community because all the community was really brought by me. And so feeling like you're outcast. And so it's getting just really to the point where you can sit in both seats and come at it with a lot of compassion and understanding for everyone's point of view when these things happen. And so, as we think about how to start again, how do we begin? How do we not stay stuck? How do we not stay in a place where we're not making decisions or where we're in the paralysis of analysis? I really believe that to do this successfully, you have to begin with the end in mind. And it's okay if you don't know all the details. You can brain dump whatever's in your head or whatever's coming to mind. It's really important that you give yourself space to take some inventory of what didn't go the way you planned and also what could have been better that first time around. We have to take this inventory. We have to face up to whatever the disappointments were. We have to face the mistakes. And we do that so that we can locate the patterns that are in our way of thinking or acting or being that brought us to those places. We have to assess history and evaluate it. And once we've done all of that, then we can identify some ways that we could have shown up differently or thought differently or acted differently. We can also hope that we don't repeat our mistakes as we go into the new chapter. I was what I would call healthy in my 20s and 30s. I worked out. I ate lots of fruits and vegetables. I traveled the world. I got regular massages and pedicures. I didn't smoke. I didn't do drugs. As a matter of fact, I would barely take an aspirin. And then when I turned 40, I got diagnosed with breast cancer. And I remember the doctor telling me that it's very likely that the cancer had already been something that was slowly growing for the last 10 years. And that was an inventory moment in my life. because by all the accounts that I just gave you, I could not understand how something like cancer would be showing up in my life. And that shook me because I was very proud of being healthy and doing all the things right. But my first observation was also to remember that cancer doesn't discriminate. And sometimes cancer is the product of a toxic environment. It could be secondhand smoke. It could be the Roundup that's getting into our food. It could be hormone disrupting chemicals in our lotions and potions that we slather onto our skin. There are a lot of outliers for why cancer can show up. And as I took inventory, I ended up also making this list for myself. And I'm wondering if it resonates with any of you. My list was: works 70 to 80 hours a week, never lets a detail slip, answers emails and texts as soon as they pop in, sleeps very little, loves sugary things, takes on too much, feels the pressure to perform because she's an overachiever, tries every fad diet, has a plastic surgeon for a little nip, tuck, and suck. Because if something jiggles, who's going to like me? Lets her man yell and scream and let off steam while she practices saint-like patience. Meanwhile, the load of carrying this man-child's weight is like an anchor in the ocean of no boundaries. Never let them see you cry, and make sure that all the men know you have bigger balls than they do so they don't underestimate you. We can drink them all under the table as if that's some kind of trophy for toughness. Make money so she can scowl at the poverty she grew up in and say, but look at me now. And when I look at that long list of things that might have contributed to possibly why I got cancer, I can point to one common denominator in it all, and that is stress. Life is full of stress. It is part of our human experience. What we are not usually so great at is limiting the stress that we can control and learning to process those emotions that show up. I think of stress a lot differently than I used to. I used to say, I can sleep when I'm dead. And now with some wisdom on me, I say, I sleep so that I can fully live. Don't let anyone tell you you shouldn't be napping or that you should have some unlimited store of energy that never quits. If you need the rest, take the rest. There is no shame in it. You're not quitting, you're recharging. And I think that a lot of people can be confronted with just how busy life can be. And I think that confrontation showed up when COVID happened because the world stood still for what seemed like an eternity. And that forced everyone to slow down in such an interesting way that when I look at how things work now and how people have done some reprioritizing, you really see it in the workforce because a lot of people didn't want to go back to an office. A lot of people didn't want to go back to what was because now they've created some new routines. They're getting more sunshine. They figured out they can work from home maybe more effectively than they could in an office. So it's been an interesting way of the world to have to be forced into a reset. And at the same time, it also created a lot of loneliness and disconnection. If you are someone who counted on an office to be your place where you could go and see people and have conversations, even if it felt a little anxious or awkward, at least you were out in public and you got to feed off other people's energy. And I know that it had its own challenges. We're going to take a quick commercial break. But when we come back, I am going to tell you what I would do if we could go back in time.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorick, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorick has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
All right, if I could go back in time, I would take more naps. I would care less about what I thought about other people. Let me rephrase that. I would care less about what I thought other people thought about me. And these days, when I don't hear back from someone or I'm met with a bad attitude, I pause and say, I don't know what that was about, but it wasn't about me. The only person that's thinking about me all the time is me, and maybe my dog because she's super anxious and attached. As time went on after the cancer diagnosis and I kept taking inventory, I also realized that this was my opportunity to not repeat the same mistakes. So the big question here is, how do we create a vision and reality for ourselves and not repeat the mistakes of the past? So again, you take inventory. I shared my list with you, as messy as it was. So create your list, create your inventory, and be real with yourself. Think about how you might have had a standard. My old standard was that a mani and a pedi felt like self-care. But a mani and pedi aren't really self-care. They're maintenance. So how do you think about the things that you do and why you do them? As we take an inspired action to dream bigger and go into turning over this new leaf with some intention, it gives us an opportunity to also make another list. Except this one is the list of what you will and won't tolerate, what you'll invite and attract into your life, and what you want to see this time around. To find inspiration, you might read a few travel blogs to get some travel inspiration on new places and new sites and new things and experiences. Or you might decide to watch an episode of HGTV to figure out what kind of home or what kind of place that you want to live in, what might be different, what could look different. Is it a change of scenery? It could be a weekend of rom-coms on Netflix so that you can remember what it feels like to put yourself in that character's role and feel what it feels to have butterflies again. To feel like you can overcome odds. Also, once you recognize what stress looks like, now that you know all of its disguises, and you'll learn to say no a little more. You're going to learn to say yes to you more. You're going to be able to shut down the computer and go outside and play in the sunshine. You'll put your phone in airplane mode and stick it in your bag and not even remember that it's there. You'll watch a sunset instead of videoing a sunset. You'll choose your indulgences with a little more discretion. You'll write down what's really important to you and not what you think is important to everyone else. You will find that in prioritizing yourself that you can actually show up even more powerfully for the people in your life that you want to serve. Maybe that's your partner or your kids or your clients. You learn to double down on you first. And too many of us are doing it backwards. We're depleting ourselves and then still trying to show up for everyone around us. And it's hard. It's so hard to operate on a battery that never gets to be fully charged. During the pandemic, I mentioned to you that marriage was a struggle for me. And if I'm really honest, there were a lot of red flags I ignored long before then because I always had a getaway. Work was always able to fill the time where intimacy wasn't. And for the first time, I had to sit in the discomfort of all of the discontent and discord of my relationship, the misalignments. I could just run off on a trip to escape. I had to face the reality of my life at home. And as I sat with all of the discomfort, I also was reminded that I get to choose, that we all get to choose. And I made the commitment to choose something better for the next half of my life. I had to get brave and I had to have the hard conversations. I had to have the courage to follow through on my next steps. And it wasn't easy. I still love my ex very much, and I think he'll always be family to me. But we were complete on that relationship and we were complete on that chapter. Letting go and moving on was bittersweet, but also empowering as hell. It's a new season where the relationship that I had, like I said, it's complete and it gets to be rebirthed as a new relationship, as a new friendship. And if I had to really evaluate it, I would say that we were probably more present with each other when we see each other now. We are probably more kind to each other than we were when we were together. And I think it's the conscious effort of taking something that you've completed on and rewriting a new chapter, but rewriting it in a way that still allows there to be a relationship. And for some of you, that may not be what you want, and that's okay too. You get to rewrite it any way you want. But a big piece of that was I did share with him, I said, hey, this is what I would love the future to look like for us. I don't think that it has to be one where we are at odds with each other or one where we fight or we say mean things about each other. I think we can just be complete. We can learn all the lessons and we can share the gift of that and still remain intact and remain friends. And that's been a really, really beautiful part of all of this, is that there didn't need to be a complete removal of him from my life. There just needed to be some distance, and the distance actually created the beauty. And it was a way to still, I think, preserve some of the love in just a different form. One of the pieces that really came clear for me, I got a lot of clarity around it. And it was also the acknowledgement of what I'd done right all those years that helped me move from caterpillar to butterfly stage. And that for sure was community. When my marriage ended, I lost part of my identity, but because it was just one piece and so many other parts were still intact, that foundation gave me legs to stand on whenever I was feeling weak in the knees from all the changes. And so many times we lose ourselves to our work, to our kids, to our relationships, and we forget all about the other people and experiences that existed when we stopped living so heavily in one identity. If you are someone who has gone or is going through a time where you feel stuck in the chrysalis and you're looking for your wings and you are struggling with how to begin again, I have you in my heart and my mind. Whether you are navigating a breakup, navigating loss, trying to create new boundaries, or maybe just trying to come home to yourself. That person that you lost along the way, and you need someone in your corner. You want some accountability to hold you to your higher standard, and you don't want to walk it alone. For you, I actually have an invitation today. I have been thinking about this, and I've been talking with my team about it. And the inspiration came and said, how can I help others move out of the old chapter and old paradigm into a new, fresh chapter? How do we support each other through the chrysalis? How do we not just start a new chapter, but we start a whole new book? And with that has come the crafting of a brand new adventure that I call MADLOVEOLOGY. This is a retreat that will have us spending about 3 soul-filling days together, eating clean and delicious food, designing your new future and what you want it to look like, empowering you with the tools to do it. And you'll be really held and supported by a group of amazing humans who will become your lifelong friends. I am confident that the strategies and frameworks you walk away with are going to empower you for the rest of your life if you use them. I'm going to do 2 sessions this year, so you can pick the dates that work for you, which is either June 20th through the 22nd or October 3rd through the 5th. Those spots are limited. I really want to keep this experience intimate. So if you feel called to join us, just head over to maryd.com. That's MARYDEE.com, and fill out the contact form, and we're going to send you all of the details. You can also book a discovery call if you need to, and we can work out whether this event is going to be the right fit for you or not. This is highly curated, so there is going to be an intake form. I really, really want to make sure that I put the right folks together and create a really magical experience. I'm also really excited about bringing you frameworks that can transform your life for the better, because when there's community and support, we can have a safe space to nurture new beginnings. And I do hope that you'll join us. So with that, that is our show for today. We're back here next week for a new segment of the MADLOVE Your Life Show. My special guest next week is board certified plastic surgeon Jay Kim out of Washington, D.C. We are going to talk about what it takes to be beautiful on the outside, but more importantly, why it's more important to invest in being beautiful on the inside. Remember that you can always catch MADLOVE Your Life here every Wednesday at 4 Eastern. Head over to maryd.com to grab the link to my YouTube channel, which is the MADLOVE Your Life Show, for more great content. Most of the shows have an extended version of the show, so you can get even more great content. We are 6 episodes deep this new season, so if you haven't had a chance to watch or listen to those episodes, I would love for you to follow, download, listen, and share. It is how the social media squirrels know that you like what you heard, and they make it more accessible to other people just like you. And until next time, may abundance always walk beside you, may joy always go before you, and may love always guide you on your path.
Thank you for tuning in to today's show. We air live every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Bold Brave TV. We hope to see you back next week. For more ways to connect with my guests, content, programs, and retreats, just head over to www.maryd.com and subscribe. That's MARYDEE.com.